Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something most people secretly struggle with, but few ever master the art of letting go. Imagine this: you're standing at the edge of your past, gripping something so tightly your knuckles turn white. A relationship, a dream, a version of yourself that no longer fits. And deep down, you know it's not alive anymore, but still, you won't loosen your hand. Why? Because holding on feels safer than the silence that comes after letting go. Or else, example, a tree in autumn. Its leaves blaze gold, red, and orange, and then they fall. The tree doesn't fight. It doesn't scream for them to stay. It surrenders because it knows that in order to survive winter and bloom again in spring, it must release what no longer serves it. Now ask yourself, what are you still carrying that has already fallen away? What in your life are you clinging to that's already fallen away? And here's the most haunting truth. What if the very weight you're clinging to, the very story you replay in your head at night, isn't loyalty, isn't love, isn't strength? What if it's resistance in disguise? And what if peace, the kind of peace you've been chasing for years, only begins the moment you dare to set it down? So tonight, we're not just talking about moving on. We're talking about liberation, about learning how to prune what no longer serves you, how to find peace in the silence, and how to release with strength instead of bitterness. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Letting go sounds simple until it's your turn to do it. Until it's your relationship that no longer works, your dream that didn't unfold, your identity that doesn't match the person you've become. The Stoics tell us that life is not about adding more and more to your load, but about subtraction, stripping away what no longer belongs. And yet, we resist, we cling. We tell ourselves that maybe if we hold on long enough, things will go back to how they used to be. Maybe if we try harder, if we explain ourselves one more time, the world will finally make sense again. But holding on too long, that's not loyalty. That's not strength. That's betrayal. A betrayal not of others, but of yourself, of who you are becoming. The Stoics knew what most of us forget: everything in life moves. Nothing stays still. People evolve, seasons shift, chapters close. And the wise person is not the one who resists this movement, but the one who aligns with it. To release what no longer serves you doesn't mean you hate it. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you have honored what it was, and you accept what it is. The job, the friendship, the dream. The old version of yourself, they had a role. They carried you once. They helped you grow. But in another season, the same things that carried you can start to weigh you down. And there is no shame in that. There is only responsibility, the responsibility to notice the change and respond with courage. So ask yourself honestly, what are you still carrying that has turned from a gift into a weight? What thought loops do you run every night? Not because they inspire you, but because they feed your fear or your ego. What relationships are you still in, not out of love, but out of nostalgia or guilt or fear of being alone? What identities are you clinging to, even though they feel like costumes you've already outgrown? These are not easy questions. They sting. They cut. But discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is a compass. It tells you that something real, something vital, is being touched. We often think we need closure before we can let go. We wait for apologies that never come, for explanations that will never satisfy, for someone else to hand us permission to move forward. But closure almost never arrives in the way we want. Sometimes closure is not a conversation at all. Sometimes closure is a quiet decision you make when no one else is watching. It's the moment you stop watering what no longer grows. It's the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who never wanted to understand you. It's the moment you stop living inside old narratives that shrink your worth. The Stoic doesn't chase closure. He creates peace, not by forcing someone else to act, but by choosing to accept what is fully, directly, without resistance. And letting go isn't one loud, dramatic moment. It's not a single goodbye that ends the story. No, letting go is a slow unwinding. It's the process of peeling away the fantasy you've built around something and facing it as it truly is. It means choosing clarity over comfort, reality over illusion, growth over repetition. And yes, there's grief in that. Grief for what was. Grief for the version of yourself that believed things could have gone differently. But alongside the grief comes something else. Liberation. When you begin to release what no longer serves you, you start to recover the pieces of yourself you had forgotten. The energy you thought was gone begins to return. Your focus sharpens. Your space clears. Your life begins to breathe again. But the mind will fight you. It will whisper, "What if things change? What if you regret this? What if it was your last chance?" Those whispers are not wisdom, they are fear. And fear always clings to what is dying, hoping it can keep it alive a little longer. The Stoic asks a different question. Not, "What if I lose this?" but, "Does this serve the life I am trying to build?" And if the answer is no, then letting go is not abandonment, it's alignment. You don't have to let go of everything at once. Start small. Choose one thing, one belief, one expectation, one unresolved tension. Hold it up to the light of truth and ask, "Is this helping me grow, or is it keeping me stuck?" Let that be your compass. You don't need anger to release. You don't need someone else's permission. You don't need to wait for perfect timing. What you need is courage. Courage to put down what is no longer yours to carry. Because here's the secret: when you let go, you are not losing. You are creating space for peace, for power, for presence. You are building the kind of life that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels aligned on the inside. You are stepping into a future that reflects who you truly are, not who you once were. So let go, not because you're forced to, not because you're weak, not because you gave up, but because you are finally ready. Ready to stop confusing attachment with love. Ready to stop mistaking resistance for strength. Ready to stop thinking that holding on to pain is loyalty. Letting go is not defeat. It is wisdom. It is clarity. It is the quiet beginning of a new kind of freedom. And if you feel resistance rising in you even now, good. That resistance means you're standing at the threshold of growth. And thresholds are always uncomfortable. But on the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that is lighter, clearer, stronger. A version of you that has mastered the art of letting go. At first, holding on feels noble. You tell yourself, "I'm being loyal. I'm showing patience. I'm proving resilience." You believe that by clinging harder, you are giving the situation a chance. that somehow your persistence will rewrite the outcome. But here's the truth beneath that mask often. What looks like loyalty is simply resistance in disguise. Resistance isn't always loud. It isn't just shouting, fighting, or slamming doors. Sometimes it's quieter than a whisper. It's checking your phone for a message that will never come. It's replaying the same memory as if a different ending might appear the 100th time you look at it. It's telling yourself stories like, "I just need more time. Maybe they'll understand me eventually. Maybe things will go back to normal." And the most dangerous story of all, "This is just who I am." That voice convinces you that being stuck is a permanent identity instead of a temporary season. But the Stoic sees through those illusions. The Stoic knows that when you hold on without question, you're not preserving value. You're resisting growth. There's a difference between staying committed to what matters and refusing to evolve past what doesn't. The line between them is awareness. And when you resist change, when you resist truth, you are not saving anything. You're simply avoiding uncertainty. And yet, uncertainty, uncomfortable as it feels, is the birthplace of transformation. Every time you avoid it, you extend the life of something that was meant to end. You extend a dead habit, a one-sided relationship, an outdated identity, and the longer you extend them, the heavier they become. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And one of the greatest ways we waste time is by refusing to accept reality. Think of all the energy that goes into resistance. The energy spent trying to make something work that has already expired. The energy wasted explaining yourself again and again when you shouldn't have to. The energy drained by staying in a place mentally, emotionally, or even physically just because you're terrified of what might come next. Resistance doesn't clarify your life. It confuses it. It leaves you exhausted, frustrated, clouded, and stuck. Letting go is not the enemy. Letting go is what comes after you stop resisting the truth. And truth, for the Stoic, is not an abstract philosophy. It's a lived experience. It's that calm knowing that arises in your body when you stop fighting what already is. Ask yourself, what have I been pushing against? What reality have I been refusing to accept? If you sit with those questions long enough, you'll hear the answer. Not from your mind, that's where fear shouts, but from your deeper self, where clarity whispers. There is something deeply freeing about admitting that you've been resisting, admitting that you've stayed too long, admitting that you've bent yourself out of shape just to fit into a space that no longer holds you. And freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. It doesn't always come with a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to stop rehearsing old pain. To stop trying so hard to justify what cannot be justified. To stop clinging, because resistance is tension, and tension held too long always turns into suffering. But release, that's different. Release is the gateway to peace. It's the doorway to a life where you no longer have to pretend that what hurts you is helping you, where your energy is no longer wasted keeping things alive that are already gone. So if you feel stuck, if you feel weighed down, ask yourself this: am I truly holding on out of love? Or am I simply afraid to let go because if it's fear, then the most loving act you can offer yourself and even those around you is to stop resisting and start releasing. Peace requires pruning. Most of us think peace comes from adding more control, more comfort, more answers. But the Stoic teaches us the opposite. Peace doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from elimination. It's not about how much you hold on to. It's about how much you are willing to let go of. Think again of a tree. A gardener prunes its branches not out of hate, but out of care. Not to weaken it, but to give it space to thrive. In the same way, letting go isn't rejection, it's refinement. Your emotional world is like a garden. Over time, weeds creep in resentments, fears, distractions, false obligations. Left alone, they grow wild. They choke out what matters most: your presence, your clarity, your sense of purpose. And the only way to regain control is through conscious pruning. That means regularly asking yourself, what have I outgrown? What am I maintaining only because it's familiar? What burdens am I carrying out of habit instead of meaning? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every day to strip away what was unnecessary. He understood that clutter, whether physical, emotional, or mental, always steals clarity. It blurs judgment. It dilutes focus. And, most importantly, it robs peace. You cannot be still if your mind is overcrowded. You cannot hear your intuition if your inner world is full of noise. That's why pruning is not a luxury. It's a discipline. It's a deliberate act of courage. And pruning is never easy. It means making difficult choices. It means saying goodbye, not just to people, but to patterns. To stop saying yes when you mean no. To walk away from environments that keep you small. To cut away distractions that waste your energy but add nothing to your soul. Yes, it hurts. But pruning always requires faith. Faith that what remains is enough. Faith that what you remove does not diminish your worth. Faith that by choosing less, you are actually making space for more. More depth, more authenticity, more peace. In a world obsessed with more, the Stoic walks another path, the path of subtraction. Because he knows that wholeness isn't about carrying everything. It's about carrying only what serves your highest self. So look honestly around your life. What's become noise? What connections, commitments, or stories are you still carrying even though they stopped being true long ago? These are not easy questions, but they are the ones that lead to freedom. Prune gently, but firmly. With compassion, but with clarity. Because not everything that once belonged still does, and not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes, it's the space created by letting go that finally allows peace to stay. There's a subtle difference between moving on and truly letting go. Moving on can be an escape. It can be walking away while still carrying the poison with you: resentment, bitterness, self-blame. But letting go in the Stoic sense is not escape. It is transformation. It is release without venom. It is choosing not to carry the weight forward into your future. Because how you let go matters. What you carry forward shapes who you become. Bitterness is heavy. It clouds judgment. It hardens your heart. And more often than not, bitterness isn't aimed outward, it's turned inward. We resent ourselves. We resent our younger self for trusting too much, for staying too long, for believing in something that failed. But the Stoic refuses to drown in self-blame. He reflects, he learns, and then he releases. Love, in this context, is not approval of what happened. It's compassion for yourself in how you respond. It's choosing to walk away with dignity intact, with your mind clear and your heart unburdened. Many people think they can't move forward until someone else gives them closure, an apology, an explanation, an admission of guilt. But those external events may never come. And Stoicism reminds us peace is not granted by others. It is claimed by us. Letting go with love means recognizing that closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. It's the moment you decide that pain will not be the author of your next chapter. That the wound may be real, but it will not define your identity. And this doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. On the contrary, it means feeling them fully without letting them own you. You feel grief without becoming grief. You feel anger without turning into anger. You let yourself experience what needs to be experienced, but then you release it. Because the deepest strength is not avoiding pain, but refusing to become what hurt you. Think about this when life gives you every reason to hate, and you choose instead to heal, not for them, but for you. That's real power. Healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't matter. It means it mattered deeply, and yet you still choose to move forward with grace. Letting go with love is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it's also the most freeing. Because when you release something in anger, it tends to circle back. It comes back in triggers, in memories, in shadows. But when you release with love, the cord is cut cleanly. Its grip is gone. Ask yourself, what would it look like if I let go not with rage, but with gratitude? Gratitude that it taught you something. Gratitude that it ended when it needed to. Gratitude that it revealed parts of yourself you might never have seen otherwise. This doesn't mean the experience was right. It means you are ready to stop clutching it with clenched fists. You are ready to walk forward with open hands. To say, I release this. I forgive where I can. I learn what I must. And I move on, not as a victim, but as someone who chooses peace over poison. Because in the end, letting go with love isn't for them. It's for you. It's so that your next season of life isn't built on wounds, but on wisdom. And this is where we arrive at detachment. Too often people confuse detachment with coldness. They think detachment means you no longer care, that you've numbed yourself, that you've built walls so thick no one can reach you. But in Stoicism, detachment is not apathy. It is clarity. Detachment means caring deeply without clinging, loving fully without ownership, being present without control. It is what allows you to stay grounded when life becomes unpredictable. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. If you try to control the wind, you will exhaust yourself. But if you root yourself in place, if you accept the movement around you, you remain steady. That is detachment. A Stoic doesn't avoid emotion, he masters the relationship he has with emotion. He creates space between the trigger and the response, between what happens and how he interprets it. When we are attached, we identify too closely with outcomes. We tie our worth to whether a plan succeeds, whether a person stays, whether a dream unfolds exactly as we pictured. And when those things shift as they always do, we collapse. The more tightly we grip, the more we suffer. Detachment is the freedom from that suffering. It is the realization that your value does not rise or fall with circumstances. that your peace doesn't depend on others behaving how you wish, that your stability comes from roots within, not branches without. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." This isn't detachment from life, it's engagement with life as it is. It's holding everything lightly, your relationships, your achievements, even your identity, because you understand they are temporary. And that's okay. Detachment allows you to appreciate without possession, to engage without obsession, to love without expectation. So ask yourself, what am I gripping too tightly? Is it the need to be chosen, the need to prove myself, the need to be understood? Because the tighter you grip, the more you suffocate the very things you're trying to hold on to. Real connection, real peace, real growth, they all require space. Detachment creates that space. It's not about building walls, it's about building roots. Roots deep enough that when the storm comes, you remain unshaken. So if something in your life is slipping away, a chapter, a dream, a relationship, don't force it to stay. Don't shrink yourself trying to preserve what no longer fits. Practice detachment. Step back. Breathe. Remind yourself peace is not found in possession. Peace is found in presence. We fear change not always because it's painful, but because it's unfamiliar. What we know, even when it's broken, feels safer than what we don't. So when life begins to shift, when something starts to unravel or fade, our first instinct is to fight. We cling tighter. We tell ourselves, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe if I try harder, it will go back to how it used to be. Maybe if I refuse to let go, I can hold it all together. But deep down, you know, that version of life, the one you're desperately trying to preserve, is already gone. It isn't wrong. It isn't a mistake. It's simply evolving. And the only real question is this: are you willing to evolve with it? The Stoics understood this at the core. They didn't waste their lives resisting the natural unfolding of events. Epictetus taught that peace comes from aligning your will with what is not what you wish it to be. And that is the essence of surrender. Not giving up, but giving way. Not collapsing into defeat, but standing tall in acceptance. Surrender means allowing the old forms to fall so that the truth underneath can rise. It's not a flashy moment of triumph. It doesn't announce itself with clarity and certainty. It comes quietly, disguised as dissatisfaction, as a friendship that no longer nourishes, as a career that no longer excites, as a version of yourself that no longer feels alive. We wrestle with that discomfort because we've been conditioned to see endings as failures. But endings are not failures. They are transitions. They are the space between stories. And if you learn to stop resisting them, you unlock something rare: freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from escape, but the freedom of trust. The freedom that says, I don't know what's next, but I trust myself to meet it. Surrender, then, is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's honesty with yourself. It's asking, what chapter is naturally closing in my life? What part of me is trying to change? What would happen if I stopped fighting it? Most people never ask those questions. They drown the signals in distraction, in busyness, in noise. They run faster instead of pausing. They pile more on their plate instead of facing what's fading. But the Stoic does the opposite. The Stoic pauses. The Stoic listens. The Stoic allows the shedding even when it hurts because he knows what comes after is more aligned. more true, more alive. But don't mistake surrender for passivity. It's not sitting back and waiting, it's active acceptance. It's waking up every day and choosing to stop dragging what no longer belongs. It's refusing to chase people who've already left, refusing to replay outdated versions of yourself, refusing to carry timelines that no longer fit your journey. That old version of you, yes, it got you here, but it is not the version that will carry you forward. Growth demands shedding, not once, not twice, but again and again, like the seasons cycling through your soul. And here's the hard part. The world around you may not understand. They may look at your surrender and mistake it for weakness, laziness, or confusion. They may accuse you of quitting. But you'll know the truth because you'll feel it. You'll feel lighter, not because you have less, but because you've stopped carrying what doesn't belong. Your energy will begin to return. Your clarity will sharpen. Your breath will deepen. That's what happens when you surrender to change. The fog lifts. And in that quiet clearing, you find direction not because someone handed it to you, but because you finally created space to hear it yourself. So if you feel something shifting in your life right now, don't panic. Don't rush to fill the emptiness. Don't numb the discomfort with distractions. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Trust it. Because what's evolving inside you is not a mistake, it's a message. A reminder that you are not who you were. And that's okay. You are becoming who you were meant to be. And that brings us to something even deeper: emptiness. The moment after letting go isn't always relief. Not yet. Often, it's silence, space, emptiness. And for many, that's the most terrifying part. We've become addicted to noise plans, people, opinions, obligations. So when the noise falls away, we mistake the silence for failure. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic understands that emptiness is not a void. To fear, it's a doorway to clarity. It's the sacred space where truth speaks, where the mind softens, where the soul begins to whisper. When you let go of what no longer serves you, you create space. And if you're not careful, that space will immediately try to fill itself with distractions, with comfort, with substitutes. We scroll, we consume, we escape anything to avoid sitting in that raw, quiet emptiness. But clarity is not found in motion. It is born in stillness. The discipline of sitting with emptiness without reaching for another crutch that is inner strength. That is the beginning of wisdom. We fear emptiness because we've been taught that our value is tied to how full our lives look. Full calendars, full homes, full conversations. But a cluttered life is not a rich life, and a crowded mind is not a wise mind. The Stoic teaches us that real strength comes from subtraction, not just of things, but of false beliefs, toxic patterns, outdated dreams. And once those are stripped away, what remains is something rare: mental stillness, emotional sobriety, a heart that beats without noise. Don't confuse this emptiness with numbness. This emptiness is alive. It observes, it listens, and in that silence, you begin to see what truly matters. You notice how much energy you spent on people who never valued your presence. You notice how many goals were never really yours, but borrowed expectations. You notice how often you were performing instead of living. This is clarity. And clarity doesn't arrive like lightning, it rises slowly, like a sunrise through fog. At first, it's just a feeling, a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. Then it becomes thought, what I feared losing, I never really needed. And then, finally, it becomes action. You begin to choose differently, to move differently, not because someone told you to, but because you are no longer reacting. You are responding. The Stoic approach to emptiness is not avoidance. It is curiosity, to sit with it and ask, what is this silence here to teach me? What part of me is asking to be seen? Because emptiness is not loss, it's rebirth. So don't rush to fill the silence. Don't fear the pause. Let it stretch. Let it echo. Let it strip away the noise until all that's left is what's real. Because in that stillness lies the beginning of everything true. We tend to chase closure as if it's something the world owes us. We want the final conversation, the heartfelt apology, the explanation that finally makes sense of it all. We wait, hoping someone else will hand us the resolution we crave. But in Stoic philosophy, closure is not something you're granted. It's something you claim. Closure doesn't come from the other person. It comes from acceptance. It comes the moment you stop demanding the past explain itself and start choosing to live fully in the present. Acceptance is what closes the loop, not an apology that may never arrive. The truth is, we confuse closure with justice. We think, I need to hear why they did this. I deserve to know the truth. I can't move on until they admit what they did. But those thoughts keep us chained to a moment that's already over. They make our peace dependent on the willingness of someone else to take responsibility. And often, they won't. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes they don't even see what they've done. That's why the Stoic doesn't wait for others to create closure. He creates it himself by refusing to resist reality. Acceptance isn't resignation. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean the pain wasn't real. It means you've stopped fighting what already is. You've stopped replaying the event in your mind, hoping a different ending will appear. You've stopped analyzing every word, every gesture, every detail, searching for meaning that will never satisfy. You understand the past cannot be edited. It can only be learned from. And that wisdom, holding the memory without letting it control you, is the foundation of real closure. Ask yourself, how many open loops am I still carrying? How many conversations, moments, relationships am I mentally revisiting, hoping they'll change? Every one of those open loops drains your energy, not because they haven't been resolved, but because you haven't accepted how they ended. Peace doesn't come from rewriting history. It comes from being honest about what happened and choosing not to let it dictate what happens next. And here's the paradox: the moment you accept reality, you stop needing closure from anyone else. You no longer chase explanations. You no longer beg to be understood. You shift your focus from "why did this happen to me" to "what can I learn from this?" And that shift is liberation. Acceptance puts the power back in your hands. It allows you to move forward without dragging the weight of unresolved pain behind you. That doesn't mean you'll never think of it again. But when you do, it won't control you. The memory will sting less. The emotion will be lighter. The grip on your heart will loosen. Acceptance is like finally releasing your breath after holding it too long. It softens the tension. It gives you permission to breathe again. Healing doesn't happen because the wound disappears, but because you stop picking at it, demanding it look different than it is. So if you're waiting for closure, stop waiting. Give it to yourself. Through honesty, through reflection, through grace, tell yourself the truth. It ended. It hurt. I learned. And now I move forward. That sentence alone is more powerful than any apology you could ever receive. Because closure is not a door someone else shuts for you. It's the door you walk through yourself when you realize you're ready to live without needing what once broke you. And here's the lesson many resist: letting go is not weakness. Letting go has a reputation problem. People think it's retreat, giving up, admitting defeat. But if you've ever truly let go of something deeply tied to your identity, you know it takes everything in you. Strength is not clinging harder to what no longer fits. Strength is looking fear in the face and saying, I release this anyway. The world may call that weakness. The Stoic calls it wisdom. Because you cannot step into your future while dragging the weight of what's behind you. Think of how often we hold on not because something is good, but because it's familiar. A job that drains us, a relationship that has gone hollow, a belief that no longer matches who we are. We stay, not out of joy, but out of fear. Fear of starting over, fear of grieving, fear of admitting that a part of our life is done. But grief, even when necessary, is uncomfortable. And yet the Stoic doesn't run from discomfort, he uses it. True resilience is forged not in clinging, but in releasing. And release isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a decision you make at 2 a.m., alone with your thoughts. When you finally admit to yourself, I've outgrown this. In that quiet moment, something breaks, but it isn't you. It's the chain. The chain loosens. The grip weakens, and you breathe in a way you didn't realize you'd forgotten. Letting go doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It doesn't mean erasing the past. It means refusing to let the past define your identity. It means protecting your energy and recognizing that not everything deserves a place in your future. It means no longer begging for closure, approval, or reciprocity from people who never intended to give it. It means reclaiming the power you gave away. Seneca warned us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And how do we waste it most? By clinging to things that are already gone in every way but memory. Time spent replaying what's unfixable is time stolen from becoming who you're meant to be. Letting go isn't an ending. It's the beginning of alignment. It's the choice to stop watering what's wilted and to start planting new seeds. And yes, doubts will come. Nights will feel heavier. Silence will be louder than the noise you left behind. But keep walking. Because strength isn't found in having all the answers. It's found in trusting yourself through the uncertainty. And with every step forward, you prove to yourself the truth you didn't let go to lose. You let go to grow. Growth is a beautiful word, but most people don't talk about its cost. They talk about discipline, effort, sacrifice. Yes, but they often leave out the most painful price of all: goodbye. Growth often requires goodbye. Goodbye to people you thought would always walk with you. Goodbye to dreams you once carried like treasures. Goodbye to versions of yourself that once felt essential but now feel like masks. This is the truth most of us avoid. Growth is not always about gaining more. Sometimes, growth is about losing with intention. And the Stoic doesn't see this loss as tragedy, but as refinement. When you start to evolve, everything around you gets tested. Habits, relationships, beliefs. Each one is forced to either adapt or fall away. And it hurts. Not just because you're letting go of others, but because you're letting go of yourself, the self you used to be with them. The self that was once acceptable in that environment, to those people, with those values. But you're not that self anymore. And clinging to it doesn't make you loyal. It makes you stuck. People may tell you, "You've changed," as if that's an accusation. But change is not betrayal. Change is proof of life. Those who truly care for your growth will not fear your evolution. They'll grow alongside you, or they'll respectfully step aside. Either way, the path ahead becomes clearer not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. This is the crossroads where many get paralyzed. They know something no longer aligns. They feel it, a friendship gone stale, a mindset that keeps them small, a routine that drains rather than nourishes. They feel the pull to move forward, but they hesitate. They ask themselves, what if I regret it? What if I'm alone? What if this is as good as it gets? But those are not the questions of truth. They are the questions of fear. Fear clings to the familiar. Truth whispers something else. You've outgrown this. You've learned what you needed. It's time to move on. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." That strength doesn't come from adding more. It comes from aligning more deeply. Alignment often means releasing what no longer reflects who you are, or more importantly, who you are becoming. Because every goodbye in the process of growth creates space. Space for better habits. Space for deeper peace. Space for people who don't see your evolution as a threat, but as an inspiration. You don't owe eternal loyalty to your old self. What you owe is honesty to your future self, the one who deserves authenticity, wholeness, and freedom from outdated attachments. And yes, growth can be lonely. For a time, it may feel like you're walking through fog, stripped of the familiar, uncertain of what lies ahead. But that silence, that loneliness, is sacred. It's where you meet your deeper self, the self that refuses to compromise for comfort, the self that knows peace is never found in clinging, but in releasing. So if you feel the tug of war inside you, one part pulling forward, the other part clinging back, don't mistake it for failure. That tension is a signal. It's the sign that the past is familiar, but the future is free. And you cannot have both. Growth requires goodbye. Not out of bitterness, not out of rejection, but out of reverence for what's next. Whisper it softly if you must goodbye. Say it with love. Say it with gratitude. But say it. And when you look back at your life, it won't be the noise that shaped you. It will be those quiet moments when you stopped resisting, when you surrendered, not out of weakness, but out of strength, when you chose clarity over chaos. That is the art of letting go. It's not erasing what happened, it's accepting it, learning from it, and evolving beyond it. Letting go is a discipline, it's a practice. Just like the Stoic habits of reflection, journaling, or meditation, letting go is something you return to again and again, because no one can do it for you. No apology will erase the past. No explanation will rewrite the story. Only you here, now, can choose to release. You can choose to stop replaying the old dialogue in your head. You can choose to stop holding space for people who already left. You can choose to stop carrying what was never yours to carry in the first place. And in that choice lies your peace. Not the kind that's given to you, but the kind you build moment by moment. Because every time you let go, truly let go, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing closure. You stop fearing silence. You stop needing the world to understand your choices. Instead, you become anchored not in who you were, but in who you're becoming. And that version of you, that version is calm, clear, powerful. That version has learned that the strongest act is not always to hold tighter, but to release with grace. So ask yourself, right now, what am I holding on to that holds me back? What would change if I loosened my grip? If I trusted that what's ahead could be better than what's behind? That's not weakness. That's courage. That's wisdom. That's strength. Because letting go is not about being heartless. It's about being whole. It's about making space for peace, for growth, for the life that's been waiting for you all along. Victimhood is one of the heaviest chains a person can carry. And the tragic part, most people don't even realize they're wearing it. It begins quietly, almost innocently, a complaint here, a justification there, a habit of saying, if they hadn't treated me this way, if life had been different, I'd be further by now. At first it sounds like honesty, but underneath, it's something far more dangerous. It's a slow leak of your power. Because every time you tell that story, every time you frame yourself as the powerless victim of circumstance, you reinforce a belief that life is happening to you, not through you. You teach yourself that your fate rests in the hands of other people. And once you start to believe that, you stop leading your life. You stop building. You start waiting. And waiting is where dreams go to die. The Stoics were blunt about this. They said, no one can steal your mind. No one can take your ability to choose your response. You may be hurt. You may be wronged. You may face cruelty, betrayal, loss. But if you turn that pain into your identity, it owns you. You stop healing the wound and start protecting it. Victimhood becomes familiar, almost comforting. It wins you sympathy. It excuses your stagnation. But let's be clear, chains are still chains, even when they feel justified. Power begins the moment you stop asking, why me, and start asking, what now? That single shift changes everything. It transforms your life from reactive to intentional, from helpless to accountable, from stagnant to unstoppable. And accountability, contrary to what most believe, is not a burden. It's freedom. Because once you own your life, no one else gets to dictate it. But here's the subtle danger: victimhood isn't just a mindset. It becomes a habit. A lens through which you interpret everything. Someone offers feedback. You hear an attack. A setback appears. You take it as proof that life is against you. That lens distorts reality. It feeds your pain. It shrinks your potential. And like any habit, it grows stronger the more you practice it. That's why Stoic practice begins with awareness. Awareness of the stories you repeat. Awareness of the thoughts that frame your world. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's not just a quote for your journal. That's a mirror. That's the standard by which to measure your own life. Because if you react as a victim, you surrender your future to your past. But if you respond as a creator, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this moment calling from me?" That's the pivot. That's the point where pain becomes power. This doesn't mean you ignore injustice. It doesn't mean you suppress grief or pretend things didn't hurt. It means you refuse to make the hurt your identity. You can experience grief without becoming grief. You can learn the lesson without being trapped in the wound. That is the Stoic way. So ask yourself, where are you giving away your power? In complaints, in comparisons, in blame. And then ask the harder question, who would I be without this story? Because when you release the identity of victimhood, you don't lose yourself. You uncover yourself. The self that was buried underneath all along. The self that was waiting to lead. That's why the Stoic reminds us, rise above the story. Reclaim the pen. Because whether you know it or not, you are narrating your life constantly. Every experience, every memory, every failure becomes a sentence in the script you carry. Over time, that script hardens. It becomes the lens you interpret everything through. And most people never realize they are not the authors. They are simply reciting old pain, retelling old chapters written by fear, by parents, by disappointment. But what if your story isn't truth? What if it's just a habit? What if the voice in your head saying, "I'm not enough. I always get left. I never succeed"? What if that isn't prophecy at all, but just a memory masquerading as certainty? The Stoic doesn't trust every thought simply because it's familiar. He questions it. He rewrites it. He takes back the pen. Because victimhood isn't just helplessness, it's surrendering authorship. It's letting your past write your future. But your internal narrative is not carved in stone. It's written in thought. And thoughts can change. To change them, you must be willing to pause and look at your script. Where did it come from? Who convinced you that you're hard to love? Who told you your mistakes define you? Who gave you the belief that you'll always be behind? You didn't choose those beliefs. But if you don't challenge them, you are choosing them every single day. Awareness is power, because you can't rewrite a story you haven't examined. The brain doesn't know the difference between a story you imagine and one you live. It treats them the same, which means your responsibility is this: feed your mind a better script, not a fantasy, not blind positivity, but a truthful, empowering narrative. One rooted in accountability, not blame, and it starts with small edits. Instead of "I'm always ignored," say "Sometimes I don't speak up." Instead of "I never get a break," say "I've been through a lot, but I'm still standing." These shifts matter. They reshape your identity from the inside out. Because the goal isn't to deny what happened. It's to stop making what happened the center of who you are. You are not the heartbreak. You are not the job loss. You are not the betrayal. You are the person who endured it, learned from it, and still has the power to rise. The Stoic reclaims authorship by choosing meaning. He doesn't just feel, he frames. And that choice transforms every setback into a stepping stone, every scar into structure, every page into possibility. You may not have written your first few chapters, but you are absolutely responsible for the rest. You can stay trapped in the loop, reciting old pain until it becomes your personality. Or you can rise above it, reclaim the pen, and write something freer, bolder, truer. Because at the end of the day, you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are the one who can transform it into purpose if you stop letting it speak for you. You are not your past. That's one of the hardest truths to accept, because the past feels permanent. It clings like a shadow, following you into every room, every choice, every relationship. The mistakes, the heartbreaks, the moments you wish you could erase, they whisper, "This is who you are." But the Stoic sees through the illusion. Your past is not your prison. It is your classroom. It does not define you, it refines you. The only way it continues to rule your life is if you keep identifying with it, rehearsing it, making it the central character in your story. Yes, pain happened. Yes, you carry scars. But scars are not signs of weakness. They are signs of survival. They are proof that you endured. And the difference between being chained to the past and being free is simple. Do you wear those scars as excuses? Or do you wear them as armor? Complaining keeps the wound open. Creating turns it into wisdom. That's the dividing line. The complainer strengthens their suffering by repeating it. The creator transforms their suffering by reframing it. One drains energy, the other fuels it. It's easy to fall into the trap of complaint because it feels like release. But it's a false release. It doesn't free you. It feeds the negativity. You end up carrying the same weight, only heavier. The Stoic refuses to waste breath on complaint. Instead, he asks, "What can I build with what I've been given?" That doesn't mean you deny your pain. It means you refuse to be reduced by it. You acknowledge it, but you don't bow to it. You accept it, but you don't let it write the next chapter. Because at some point, the question shifts. It's no longer, "Why did this happen?" It becomes now, "What pain happened?" Life turned. The plan broke. Now what? That's the hinge moment, the moment that determines whether you stay stuck or rise. And here's the truth. Pain will visit every one of us. It's the most democratic force on earth. No one escapes it. But suffering, that's optional. Suffering is what happens when pain becomes your identity. When you replay it, cling to it, make it your anthem. Transformation begins when you decide that pain will not be the last word, that your past will not be your future, that your scars will not be your shame, they'll be your strength. This is where responsibility enters. Responsibility is not blame. It's not pointing a finger at yourself and saying, "This was all my fault." Responsibility is the recognition that while you may not have chosen what happened, you absolutely get to choose what happens next. And in that choice lies your freedom. The Stoic knows that responsibility is not a burden. It's liberation. Because the moment you take ownership, you stop waiting for others to fix you. You stop outsourcing your healing. You stop demanding the world hand you peace. You realize peace is built from within, with every choice, every frame, every response. And that is where true power begins. Not in blaming, not in waiting, but in owning. Owning your story, owning your mindset, owning your future. Replace blame with purpose. Every time you're tempted to say, "They ruined me," choose instead to ask, "What did this teach me? What strength did I uncover because of this? What purpose can I carve out of this pain?" That is Stoic alchemy, the art of turning resentment into wisdom. Because life will never stop testing you, but you don't have to remain a victim of circumstance. You can transcend circumstance. You can choose to lead yourself, regardless of what the world throws your way. Epictetus said it best, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my will." That is sovereignty. That is self-leadership. And self-leadership is the ultimate form of letting go. It's letting go of excuses, letting go of blame, letting go of every story that tells you you're powerless. It's standing in the mirror, looking yourself in the eye, and saying, "I decide who I will be from this moment forward." Limitations are real, but they are not stop signs. They are invitations. Invitations to grow, to adapt, to transcend. And every time you accept that invitation, your mindset expands. Because your mindset is the architect of your future. The events of your life may be unpredictable, but how you interpret them, that's your power. Interpret them as curses, and you will live as if cursed. Interpret them as catalysts, and you will rise stronger and freer than you ever imagined. Your future depends less on what happens and more on how you frame it. That's the essence of Stoicism. Not control over everything, but control over the one thing that matters most, your response. So when the past knocks, whisper back, "You no longer live here." When pain lingers, tell it, "I've learned from you, but you don't own me." And when fear tries to convince you to cling, remind yourself letting go is not losing, it's living. Because the art of letting go is not the art of abandonment. It's the art of authorship. It's reclaiming the pen from the hands of fear, pain, and circumstance, and writing a story aligned with your highest self. And if you remember nothing else, remember this: letting go is not the end, it's the beginning. It is not a defeat. It is a declaration that your peace matters more than your past, that your clarity matters more than your comfort, that your freedom matters more than your fear. So today, choose to let go, not bitterly, not resentfully, but courageously, gracefully, powerfully. Let go not because you must, but because you finally understand the heaviest things you've been carrying were never yours to hold in the first place. And so, as we come to the close of tonight's journey, remember this: letting go isn't about weakness. It isn't about giving up. It's about reclaiming your peace. The heaviest burdens you carry aren't always on your back. They're in your mind, in your heart, in the stories you refuse to release. But you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are the one who can choose how to respond, the one who can decide what to carry forward and what to finally set down. That choice, that courage, is where freedom begins. Every season of life demands a shedding. Leaves fall. Chapters close. Versions of ourselves are released. And while it hurts, it is also holy. Because what's left behind isn't emptiness, it's space. Space for growth, for clarity, for a stronger, lighter version of yourself. If this message spoke to you, like video and subscribe channel, because together we'll keep uncovering the wisdom that helps us rise above. Stay grounded and live with unshakable clarity. Now breathe deep. Rest easy. Sweet dreams.